Good evening, everybody. This is Monica Guzman coming to you live once again on a weekend night. It has been another exciting Sunday of sports. Congratulations to Italy. I've always known the Italians to be pretty badass at soccer, so I'm not really shocked that they overtook England today. Nonetheless, congratulations to the Italians. It's it blows my mind the way so many current events tie into the overall topics that I'm talking about. And tonight, something else happens to fall into place for me. I will be talking about what happened to England during their soccer match today, because it ties into the personality ethic that I started to discuss yesterday. And so, as an American, soccer's not my thing. But I did spend some time in a place where I ended up experiencing the World Cup. The Now, when the World Cup was held in the United States, it it's across the country from what I remember from my understanding. So it's not the same when there's World Cup in a different area that's concentrated. And I could tell you that it was a summer of nonstop party because every country represented in the World Cup was there, and they were friendly and joyous, and it was great, even though every country was competing against the others. It was an experience that I didn't realize I was going to end up having ever in my lifetime. Again, I'm not a soccer fan, I just happened to be there. And at that time, I was hanging out with a couple of Australians, a couple of uh, English, French, Italians, and then a sprinkling of everyone else. Some Thai. I know they weren't represented, but I had a good Thai friend at that time. And so soccer, again, I'm not. It's okay. I have a different reason for being into soccer, which, again, I keep saying this, but there's the major stuff I will be breaking down into smaller portions and talking about them in the future. Like I've tweeted before, I have content to get me through the end of the year, probably spill over at this point into the following year. And I don't mind sharing a couple of stories of my experiences, just so that again, I fall into the character ethic. I do not fall into the personality ethic at all. I have substance behind me. I've experienced. I'm not engineered. I'm not funded by hedge funds or enemies of America or enemies of the West. I'm not funded. Currently, I'm not funded at all. So I'm doing this on my own time, on my own accord, on my own dime. And it's going to stay that way at least through the end of the year, just so that I can get my message out the way I want to get it out, as opposed to being told, well, such and such funds you, therefore you have to say nonsense like the GameStop short squeeze was a distraction. I'm going to admit that so everything that's happening to Nick Fuentes right now, I'm not saying that he deserves to get kicked off Twitter. I mean, I don't even think Milo deserved to get kicked off Twitter. And I'm not saying that Nick Fuentes should be shunned, but I'm trying to make up my mind about him. I don't understand why he called the GameStop short squeeze a distraction. I don't understand why he thinks having conversations about Marxism is not necessary when everything happening right now to America is based off of the ideology that was ripped off by Jews from from Karl Marx. And I don't understand. Um, there was something else that bothered me about him. And again, it falls into this weekend's theme of personality ethic versus character ethic. So I'm trying to make up my mind if Fuentes is just a child in a suit. Are some of the mistakes or some of the important things that he said, obviously he has the right to criticize the Jewish community. He has the right to make jokes if that's his shtick. Um, what bothers me is when he criticizes people still being very much into Trump, uh, criticizing an event that helped a lot of people out there fund a purchase of a home. Some people were just happy to be able to have extra money to take their out to a nice dinner, to buy toys for their kids. So, an event that helped the average American gain a little bit of extra income was not a distraction. It was awesome. Um, and then we have to talk about Marxism. We have to about Marxism from the standpoint that it was ripped off by Jews. Critical theory comes from the Jewish community that fled Germany with the Frankfurt School that set up shop in Colombia. And what they did was critical theory is built off of Marxism. Critical race theory is an offshoot of critical theory, which stems from Marxism. So my confusion with Nick Fuentes comes from a very on the topics that he feels that he doesn't want to discuss, I believe are the most important topics that we have to be discussing. So I'm not sure about Nick Fuentes if he's just a child that's bitten off more than he can chew. He obviously doesn't have any blue collar experience under his belt. That's why he's more of a child that has a long way to go before becoming a man. And again, I think it's great that there are people who identify with Nick Fuentes and he gives them some hope. But there's a better way to provide hope to young men right now. And it starts with getting you off the pot, getting you off the video games. I do understand that you guys need to keep access to your computers because meme warfare was real and it definitely helped get Trump elected in 2016. And obviously, those of us who followed along, we're grateful that you guys were there to do that. I know those of you that are still on Reddit and still on Anon, the Anon platform, obviously, Reddit helped kick off the GameStop short squeeze. Anon, you guys talk to each other or communicate with each other digitally, but we need to get American young men back in a physically healthy state, which will lead you to a mentally healthy state. And then from there, we can start rebuilding or restarting America because, again, personality ethic, character ethic, today's game between England and Italy, and all these other tangents that I'm introducing tonight all tie in together. So, okay, let me remind you once again. 4.8 million American men served in World War One. 2.8 million of them were drafted. In World War Two, or for World War Two, 10 million men were drafted. And we know that millions of lives were lost between World War One and World War Two. So today, the or pre-Biden administration, the brightest and the bravest among us volunteered to join the military. And you were the most fearless and patriotic among us too. Now, I'm not going to use patriotism as much anymore. I'm leaning more toward using rebel, because we know that American military men are being purged from what used to be the American military. And you know what? If they're purging you guys, let them get you out. We need to figure out how to get the American military men out of Africa. Apparently, they're being raped over there. We need to figure out how to get you out of the Middle East. We need to figure out how to get you where, I guess they're going to Haiti now. We need to get American men out of there. We've got to just get them out of there, get them back home, because we need you to help defend your neighborhoods, your households, and then from there it stretches out to like your county and your region and your state and then your country, right? Okay. So the reason why I will continue bringing up these statistics from World War One and World War Two is the draft. So there's an obvious IQ difference between American young men in 2021 and the American men who served in World War One and World War Two. I can easily argue that the majority of the men drafted to participate in World War One and World War Two had higher IQs than American young men today. Why? Because they weren't smoking pot, they weren't in drugs, and they weren't playing video games. They weren't sitting around all day in front of computer screens, and they read for fun. So when given that World War One and World War Two killed off so many high IQ men, American men, what we're left with, what America was left with, is what we have right now, which is way too many men or males with mental health issues, physical health issues, and just a grudge against the push-up guys. And so what that has led to is the nerdification of America. Now, that didn't happen on its own. The original nerds on American soil are your Jews. The Jewish man, compared to the American, is far weaker. Maybe the Jewish man is definitely they're more intellectual. Maybe they're more intelligent. But where it counts in the physical stuff, they cannot compete. So I've tweeted out before that I'm going to encourage American women to ask themselves, who encouraged you to become a whore? Because the same people who are encouraging American women to be whores are the same community members encouraging American young men to participate in sports gambling, to participate in smoking pot, to participate in playing video games, to sit in front of screens all day long. Now, why is that? Obviously, someone who encourages you to participate in vices isn't looking out for you. And I've realized that on top of not looking out for you, they're trying to crush you to make themselves look better. So MLB, in my case, is the prime example. So right now, MLB has engineered a player whom they imported to America, and they are rallying around him this season. And it's going as far as nobody's saying that he's changing the landscape of MLB on a global level. Okay, a lot of nonsense is going to be talked about for the rest of this season, but I will be putting a stop to a lot of it in August when I start really going into the Hall of Fame stuff. And then I'm just going to talk about the American baseball pioneers. We'll do some side by side comparisons of statistics that actually matter. But okay, so MLB's import that they are currently rallying around this season is doing some stuff that nerds think is cool. So I have my Twitter settings set up to a point where, based on keywords that I tweet about, specific news articles or specific tweets will pop up. And they provide me with information that I can actually use without me searching for it. So I like my Twitter settings. Now, something that popped up among those settings based on my keywords was a Japanese reporter from ESPN stating that this MLB player is changing the landscape of the way Americans perceive the Japanese male. So I'm going to admit that I've never looked at the characteristics of the Japanese male, but based on this ESPN's reporter's concerns, it sounds like we think that they're weak. And when you look at the Japanese, I mean, that one band is Korean, right? But they're feminine, they're feminists, they're feminized males, right? Now, I'm going to admit that I believe that some of the most fashionable people out there are Asians. It's probably the Japanese. I'm not 100% sure. But even like Vietnamese women are pretty fashionable. And the other group that I think is extremely fashionable, at least they used to be about 15 years ago, are French teenagers. So I guess Japanese males are frail. The toughest male, the most physically adept male, has been the American pre-Barack Obama administration. It has been downhill since then for the American male. So as the American male has gone downhill, there's a vacuum to fill. And that vacuum is currently being filled in MLB anyway. They're attempting to fill it with Africans, Dominicans, Puerto Ricans, Venezuelans, and Asians. So the Olympics, for example, how many Americans are going to represent the country when the Olympics roll in later on this month? Again, there's a lot of stuff that I'm throwing out there that I don't have time to dig into. So hopefully there's other people out there that will, or my Twitter feed will show me. But how many Africans are going to be representing the American flag at the Olympics this summer? It just seems like it's going to be several. So MLB is basically doing the same thing. MLB still insists on playing American soil, even though they continue importing outsiders. I think eventually MLB has to just pick up and move out of America. I personally recommend China since they have such a chummy relationship with them over there. Um, not, but until we actually kick MLB out or off of American soil, they're going to continue importing and then playing up the Africans. Now, anybody who has any doubt about the direction that the West is being taken in falls into the 80% of the bell curve. You got to remember the majority of the population is just there. They I spent some time in my community, and I'm not sure what vibe I give off or people know who I am or what exactly is going on, but people gravitate to me a lot more than they have before. I don't know if it's the mom vibe, I don't know what exactly is going on, but people talk to me, and it's good. I take the time to talk to people who are friendly and are able to communicate, um, because it's good. It's good to be a member of your community. This is again why I encourage people to set up their Benjamin Franklin groups of 30 men or less. Start getting to know your neighbors. Start figuring out what your community needs based on each other's circumstances. Where's everybody at? What's going on? What are the needs of the community? What are the concerns of the community? What is the status of children in the community? What's going on, right? Talk to people. And again, this is one of the reasons why I will not join any movement like the one led by Nick Fuentes. I would like to see Nick Fuentes contribute to his community first before he attempts to power grab on a national level. I don't trust, I'm not sure how anybody expects average Americans to trust another movement when the American right has been stabbed in the back so many times, or movements just fizzle out. And then once those movements fizzle out, we're left leaderless once again. So let me give you an example. When it comes to Tom Brady and his NFL career, I will be there to show that he can't be canceled. I will be there to defend him and his NFL career. Outside of his NFL career, there are some things that I had already noticed last year about his TB12 brand. And then there's some tweets that he's got an African family member and some of his partners are Africans. So will Tom Brady ever go Marxist? Tom Brady. Now, Tom Brady could argue that, you know what, the person he is in his NFL uniform is the person that he is outside of his NFL uniform. And I can understand that. Athletes today, like, the only NFL player that I'm a fan of is Tom Brady. Now, I will defend your Aaron Rodgers and your Drew Brees against being called old just because they're white. I'm not impressed by Aaron Rodgers. I don't get the hype around him. But I also don't get the hype around your Tony Romos. I mean, Tony Romo isn't a champion, right? Like, dude. Um, so Aaron Rodgers was quoted as saying that athletes need time to get mentally healthy. And I cannot imagine Walter Johnson, Honus Wagner, Ty Cobb, Babe Ruth being as stupid as that. Like when a grown man, a grown professional athlete says something like that, it means that he has way too much time on his hands. At this point, Aaron Rodgers should be married with kids. Then he will focus all that loopiness. I mean, I guess he's got California granola in him now, but I'm sorry, Aaron, it's just stupid. Like, it shows that you have way too much time on your hands. Get married, have some kids, and then your mental health will fix itself because you'll be focused. You won't be selfish anymore. You'll be focused on your kids. Now, back to Tom Brady. If Tom Brady goes Marxist, I decided last year that I will split off and not support his Marxist stuff. So the reason why I'm giving this example is because individuals who haven't proven themselves and identify with the right, we have to be able to turn on a dime on them or away from them as soon as they show that their intention all along was just another power grab, or that they really are Marxists, or they're just trying to make a quick buck, or they were high school nerds, so they got a grudge against the popular kids and they want their revenge. So, character ethic versus personality ethic. Character ethic has substance behind it. Why was George Washington so loved by Americans? George Washington was so loved by Americans because he proved himself on the battlefield. He was a leader of men. I mean, George Washington is the one that we celebrate on a physical level. He wasn't an athlete, but he was a leader. He was there on the front lines with his crew, right? Thomas Jefferson, Ben Franklin. I've got to read more on John Adams and James Madison, but those guys were more intellectuals, right? More intelligent. So they don't get the same kind of glory that we give to your George Washington. Abraham Lincoln was definitely far more physical than Thomas Jefferson, they were more brainiacs, right? But they proved themselves at such a young age. I mean, Ben Franklin's resume by age of 29 is just insane. But okay, so so where do I want to go next? So what I'm trying to convey to you guys is American young men, we need to get you physically fit again. And I'm not talking about going to the gym. I personally have discovered that it's possible to lose weight just with food alone, which I still think it's insane. I cannot believe the number of pounds I dropped by changing my diet. I will walk you through that journey more once I hit my goal weight. So I still have a little bit more to go. And as soon as I'm there, I will walk you through it. I will walk you through the specifics. But I'm not talking about turning young American men into the retarded gym bros. I'm talking about getting you physically fit. MLB is when it comes to MLB, you have to ask who hasn't been injured yet. Because every single guy, every team has way more guys that have been injured than guys that haven't. And that reality extends to the military. Do you know that 1/3 of the American military in 2019 experienced injuries, not injuries on the battlefield? It wasn't even injuries caused by friendly fire. American young men in 2021 are frail, and it's on purpose. Again, a Japanese, or he's Asian, and he works for ESPN, tweeted out that MLB's import is going to change the way Americans view Japanese and Asian males. Because obviously he thinks that Americans see Japanese and Asian males as frail, which is true because you look at them and they are, they look frail, right? They look frail. So the American male is being crushed. You are being crushed. They legalized pot so you can burn out your brain cells. Video games are, you are encouraged to play video games to weaken your physical fitness. You are encouraged to eat junk food to rot your insides. Um, and who's doing it to you? It's people who don't like you. The same people who are turning American women into whores are turning American men into piles of sludge. Gluttons. You're basically gluttons. You're high gluttons, right? Okay. So another example of this, and another example of why I know that it's on purpose, is before the lockdown, the baseball teams were qualifying for the Olympics. And the American team did not qualify. They got beat by Mexico. You know who did make it? The Israel baseball team. The Judeos made it, but not the Americans. So it's important to understand that a lot of the world holds grudges against the Americans. China is so happy that America is sinking. They are dancing on your grave, in your face. They want you to be piles of fat and burnt out brain cells. They want you to be stupid. They are dancing on your graves, in your face. Russia, I don't think Putin is celebrating the downfall of America, but Putin protects Russians. So if he has to protect Russians against Americans, then I'm pretty sure he's happy that American men are piles of fat, like burnt out brain cells, right? So another way that, again, I go back to the Olympics, how many Africans are going to represent the American flag this time around in the Olympics versus how many Americans are going to represent the flag? And then it's not even that. When Americans are representing the American flag, it's global homos, it's Marxists, it's mentally ill men paraded around as women. It's mentally, I don't think it goes the other way around, right? Are women, mentally ill women, parading around as men in the Olympics too, or it's just the other way around? Whatever it is, though, it's all of this is being done on purpose. There is a concerted effort to crush the American because, again, the American male is about winning, which I want to talk about tonight. I want to let me talk about that now. So I grew up watching sports. I love sports. I love watching men participate in physical challenges, either against each other or on the same plane. Like, I mean, is golf a sport? I guess. Like, because golf happened today too, right? I mean, I guess golf is it's an English thing. Uh, I mean, it's just okay. So I don't like golf when there's a lot of sand trapping going on, or like they miss the putt so many times. Like I think it's like, dude, that's mediocrity, right? It gets interesting. Now I don't know the names of all the putts, but it gets interesting when you whack the ball and it gets close to the hole on the first shot. And then my expectation is that they're going to get it in on the second shot as opposed to going 3, 4, 5 times. Um, but okay, the point is there was golf today too. So it was like soccer palooza and then golf. Um, so basically, I've been watching sports since I was 2 years old. And in all that time, I never heard a professional athlete say that winning didn't matter. That when I first heard that from Dodgers so called players, whom he refers to as fungible, when I first heard that, it came from that crowd, it came from his players. I didn't even know what to think. I think it may have been Clayton Kershaw who said that wins as a pitcher don't matter. Um, I was like, what the fuck? Winning doesn't matter? Are you fucking serious? Then why are you playing a professional sport? So, as I started to research all this stuff, I realized that winning is specific to the American. This playing just for the hell of it comes from the Jewish community, which runs MLB. Here's the kicker though. When the Israel baseball team qualified to play in the Olympics this time around, there was a celebration from the Jewish MLB community. Now, on top of that, they are putting together a documentary. So, do you think that if the Israel baseball team wins the Olympic gold medal, it's just going to be whatever for the Judeos residing on American soil that run MLB? Or do you think they're going to celebrate it? So, does winning, it's, they obviously do care about winning. If they even put up an Israeli baseball team to qualify for the Olympics, obviously winning does matter. But while the American is being told that winning doesn't matter, through the back door, they are sneaking in imports that are winning and they're selling that. So the American is getting crushed to make others look good. And this is critical theory. in action. Critical theory seeks to overthrow the majority of the country in question. They could walk over to Mexico, cross the border to Mexico, do the same thing to Mexicans. They will overthrow the majority Mexican in favor of African, because with England versus Italy today, that's what happened, right? So I didn't watch these games, but there were several tweets that pointed out that England, which is basically run by Muslims, thanks to the London, I want to say this right. London Stan? No. Right? Pakistan, London, Pakistan. London Stan. Right, London's no longer London. It's London Stan, right? Okay. So every soccer team now, even Mexico, has Africans on it, which I am against. We need to de-Africanize our national teams. I'm sorry. It's just, especially Mexico. For me, we've got to get the Africans out of there. Africans have a country. You don't like your country, I don't know what to tell you. You can't have everybody else's country. So from what I gathered from these tweets is the England team, the game had to go into penalty kicks. And it's true. Who gets the glory in MLB? Why is Madison Bumgarner a legend? Because Mad Bum, we all remember Mad Bum for dominating and closing out World Series games. So Mad Bum pitched several innings. So Mad Bum falls into character ethic, not personality ethic. Mad Bum wasn't engineered as far as I know. The guy that gets the glory is the guy that closes out the World Series game. The guy who hits the walk-off home run, even hit double, whatever it is. The guy that gets the glory is the one that closes out the game. So what England tried to do today was the game went into penalty kicks and England put up 3 Africans who all missed. Like, I can't find the video anymore, but there was a video of one of England's Africans clearly missing the net. Like, the goalie didn't even have to, he lunged toward the ball, but he didn't even have to do that because the kick just sucked so bad. So what was England trying to do? Even though England is run by Muslims, or at least London, England basically took a page out of MLB's Jewish community's playbook. The reason why I turned in my LA Dodgers fan card was in 2017 when Jewish Andrew Friedman put Jock Peterson in the minor leagues and brought in mediocre African Curtis Granderson. Because what Andrew Friedman was trying to do was to engineer a hero out of a mediocre African. And something that I'm going to do is I'm going to try to find out. I don't remember. Obviously, you're not a worthy pitcher if I can't remember your name. The pitcher who hit Chris Taylor on the number when African Curtis Granderson, mediocre Curtis Granderson, got brought up. Some pitcher hit Chris Taylor on the number because I know I was against Chris Taylor giving his number to mediocre Curtis Granderson. Fuck you for hitting Chris Taylor, asshole. Chris Taylor owns number 3. We all knew him as CT3. Fuck you, pitcher, for hitting him on the chest for a mediocre African. What the fuck is wrong with you? You're obviously a Marxist. But okay. So for the first time in my sports fandom career, um, I was rooting against a player on my team, my favorite team. I was actively rooting against mediocre African Curtis Granderson because I knew that Jewish Andrew Friedman was trying to engineer him as a hero and he failed. Now, why did I have such a strong opinion over mediocre African Curtis Granderson? Because I saw what NASCAR tried to do with never won a race Danica Patrick. I stopped watching NASCAR. I gave it a shot for 1 year or one season, and then I stopped. I could not handle the Marxist announcers, NASCAR's Marxist announcers, constantly telling us about Danica Patrick, who never won a fucking race. Oh, look, she's running in 32nd place. Well, look at her go. It just was lame. And so when Andrew Friedman did what he did with Curtis Granderson, I was like, Jesus Christ, this is fucking Danica Patrick all over again with baseball bats and balls. I was like, okay, it's over. For me, it was pretty much over. And then I stuck around because I needed to see some things play out, which I did. And obviously that's why the Andrew Friedman Dodgers don't have any respect among the remaining baseball fans that are out there. I mean, it's really cute for these guys to give interviews and say stupid stuff like, oh, we've got a target on our back, and that's why nobody voted us for the All-Star game. No, 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 it's not that. It's the fact that under the Andrew Friedman regime, Stan Kasten, Mark Walter, and that other guy whose name I can't remember still, it's the fact that they've recruited sexual degenerates, domestic abusers, cheaters, Mookie Betts, um, and then Gabe Kapler, who covered up for Alex Verdugo, Julio Diaz, and the guy that actually did get kicked off of the AAA team. So, again, personality ethic versus character ethic. England attempted to engineer a situation where the English would be forced to celebrate Africans, even though England isn't African. It has happened in MLB, so I know very well when I started reading those tweets and the outcome of that game, I knew, I was like, yeah, I know what that's like to have to bear and grin that stuff. It's not fun because you've got to move on from all that. Okay. So I wanted to talk a little bit more about personality versus character ethic in terms of MLB. But I'm already approaching an hour and I didn't even get to something that I want to talk about too is image bombardment as conversion therapy. So I'm going to remind you that the Jewish community claims that Karl Marx was anti Semitic. Okay, maybe he was. But again, that did not stop the Jewish community from stealing his Marxist ideas and building on top of them. Reminder, critical theory stems from Marxism. Critical theory made its way to American soil when the Jews ran away from Germany. And they set up shop. The Frankfurt School set up shop at Columbia, and they extended their critical theory ideologies. Now, currently race theory is happening, but critical race theory might be anti-white, but critical race theory is an offshoot of critical theory, which seeks to overthrow the majority of any country. Again, the Jewish community could cross the border into Mexico and do the exact same thing to Mexicans. They would seek to overthrow the Mexicans and replace us with Africans. So let me expand on that a little bit. So why do all soccer teams basically have Africans on their teams? Again, I think even Mexico has an African at this point. Obviously, what they're trying to do is Africanize the world, at least Africanize the West. Now, are they trying to Africanize the West because Africans have the lowest IQ out of all the ethnicities residing in the West? Maybe, which should tell you that once they start Africanizing to a point where they're comfortable, they could roll out another plan to get rid of those Africans. I mean, I honestly don't know. From my understanding, the Jews owned slaves too. Are the Jews trying to lower the West's IQ to a point where we will be enslaved and not fight back? I don't know. That's not stuff I could talk about. I don't have enough knowledge in that topic, and I'm also not a psychopath. So I have no idea what's running in the brain of Charles Schwab or George Soros. Like, I'm not a psychopath, so I can't even imagine the darkness or the evil that lives within these two devils. That's for somebody else to figure out and then help us prepare against it. So I don't know. Are the Jews trying to wage a Holocaust against Americans? Are the Jews trying to enslave Americans through Africanization? I can't, I have no idea. I can tell you that I am getting more confident in my knowledge of Germany from the mid to late 1800s. That's where the experiments on humans stem from. Now, okay, let me tie this back. Why are Weimar Jews, or why were Weimar Jews so intent on experimenting on humans? I believe it's because they're trying to fix their deficiencies. The Jewish community is not a physically fit community. They are physically frail. And I'm starting to believe that cancer is spreading because they are the ones that are most likely to incur cancer. I believe that male balding is increasing because of the Jews. It's a trait that they carry. I mean, we already know about their nose situation, right? So I'm actually right now believing that cosmetic surgery stems from the Jewish population too. So everything that's happening to Americans right now is an effort for the Jewish community to fix its deficiencies. So in MLB, why is MLB basically one large experiment on humans? Because Jews are not adept at playing baseball. Jews will never become Babe Ruth, Honus Wagner, Walter Johnson, Christy Mathewson, Cy Young, Ty Cobb. They will never be them. I mean, they celebrate Sandy Koufax, but Sandy Koufax played 10 years and then retired due to an arm injury. Lou Gehrig passed away at 37 because he had poor genes. And then there's some other ones. here and there. But again, the Jewish community holds a real grudge against Americans. The legalization of pot, the legalization of drugs, the the atheist movement that took place a few years ago with trying to remove the nativity scenes during Christmas time, I believe that was orchestrated by the Jews as well. And I believe there are several other things that they're orchestrating against Americans. And I'm not apologizing for it. I think that if the Jewish community truly wants to coexist with the American community, there's a lot of things that we need to reverse, and it starts with putting prayer and Bible study back in public schools on American soil. You want to show that you're not here to wage war against Americans. Let's start with that stuff, and then we can go from there. But so let me start wrapping up. And let me emphasize that Americans have to push back against what's happening. And for every position, every athlete, every event that's being replaced with Africans is an opportunity for Americans to take it back. There's so much opportunity out there, and hopefully I will help. I'm just trying to be a portion of the catalyst that helps restart America. I'm not trying to be the brand, and I'm not trying to get famous. I'm not trying to bring attention to myself, but I believe that my perspective is going to help those of you out there who are already on the front lines and who are already mobilizing. I believe my perspective, I bring that perspective to the table, and it's helpful. So next weekend will be Ty Cobb weekend. Ty Cobb passed away July 17, 1960 something. And then MLB Marxists, led by the Jews, promptly started to attack him. Cowards. You attacked him after he died as opposed to confronting him while he was still alive. You fucking cowards. So next weekend, I will be talking about the greatness of Ty Cobb. And, but see, when I talk about the American baseball pioneers, I'm not talking about them from a perspective of jock worship. I talk about the American baseball pioneers because they were Americans. The most quintessential American was Cy Young. But Ty Cobb, Babe Ruth, Walter Johnson, Honus Wagner, Christy Mathewson were also representative of American men in their own right. Christy Mathewson was by far the more intellectual one, but they loved him. When Christy Mathewson passed away, there were team players that wore the black band to acknowledge that he passed away. And so, you know, I'm not sure about Christy Mathewson, but he's definitely still worth talking about. And his book is really great. I haven't read the other books that he wrote. I believe they're like short stories. But again, so next weekend is Ty Cobb weekend to remember him after his passing and to push back against the MLB Marxists who are trying to tarnish the reputation of the American baseball pioneers, such as Cap Anson, Ty Cobb. They don't go after Walter Johnson too much. They're going after Babe Ruth. They kind of go after Honus Wagner, but he was pretty badass too. So I hope that when you guys watch these videos, you get something out of it. Hopefully, it's something that you've already been thinking about, and hopefully, it pushes you to keep pushing back. I reject the Africanization of the West. I reject Africans being on the Mexican soccer team. I reject the notion that Africans will one day rule over us. America is worth reviving, restarting. The founding documents are the documents that we should want to be guided by in our lives. So I hope everybody has a wonderful week. I will see you next Saturday, 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Let's talk some Thai. Thank you again. See you next weekend.